And it's Marilyn, Marilyn. Everywhere Marilyn. Welcome everyone to Discover This. Today is all about Marilyn Monroe. So when you're in Palm Springs at the intersection of Tequit's and South Palm Canyon, right by the El Patron restaurant, if you go visit the Marilyn statue, come down here and you can also see Marilyn Monroe's star on the Palm Springs Walk of Fame. So back in the 1940s, Marilyn was thinking about throwing in the towel and leaving Hollywood because she really wasn't getting any good parts, or parts that she felt were good for her. So she was talking with a photographer friend about what she should do, and he said, let's go to Palm Springs. So they came out to Palm Springs and they came to the Racquet Club, which used to be at 2743 North Indian Canyon. Now the Racquet Club was started by actors Charles Farrell and Ralph Bellamy, and this was the place. The Racquet Club and the El Mirador were both the place to be seen, basically, by all of Hollywood. So Marilyn goes to the Racquet Club, and after spending some time here, she decides to stay in Hollywood. Now she came back out here in 1949, and a talent agent with the William Morris Agency by the name of Johnny Hyde saw her during a photo shoot here at the Racquet Club by the pool, and he signed her to a contract, and the rest is history. He also fell in love with her and left his wife for her, but Marilyn did not reciprocate. But this was the Racquet Club, long gone. Just what's left. Pool would have been back in that area, I believe. There's also a lot of tennis courts. But even if you weren't staying at the Racquet Club, you would come here just to hang out, have a few drinks maybe, things like that. But this was where Marilyn was discovered. And after Johnny Hyde saw her here and signed her to the contract, her popularity went through the roof. Now, one of the places Marilyn would stay when she came to Palm Springs was the Miraloma Hotel, which is now the Palm Springs Rendezvous. It's also very close to the Racquet Club, but this is at 1420 North Indian Canyon, and Marilyn would stay in what is now known as the Pretty in Pink room, and in that room is still the vanity that Marilyn would use when she was doing her makeup and hair and stuff. So if you rent the Pretty in Pink room here at the Rendezvous, you can use Marilyn's vanity. Some of the other stars that have stayed here over the years, back in the day, if you're into old Hollywood, Veronica Lake and Gloria Swanson. So quite a history of the old Miraloma Hotel, now the Rendezvous. Now, one of the other places that Marilyn would stay when she came to Palm Springs was the old Riviera Hotel Resort, and it is now the Margaritaville Resort, but the layout's the same, buildings are the same, but she stayed here a few times, but she also attended some of the galas and functions. This is also a place where the Rat Pack would hang out, and she was associated with the Rat Pack. But the old Riviera Hotel, corner of Chino Canyon and, I'm sorry, Vista Chino and Indian Canyon. So another place Marilyn would stay is a place in the sun. It's a bungalow style hotel, really nice. But it was built back in the 50s for the movie A Place in the Sun, and it was a place for the stars to stay while they were filming the movie out here in Palm Springs. So Elizabeth Taylor and all those folks that were in that movie. And then after the movie was done, it just stayed being a hotel, and a lot of other people stayed here. Marilyn Monroe being one of them, but Walt Disney was another one. So when you come in, it's just a nice small little bungalow style hotel. But Marilyn's room, she stayed in room 19, and that was always her room. Room 19, right there. All the rooms are by the pool. It's just a nice little property, quiet. So Mr. Lyons, this is a restaurant that attracted a lot of the Hollywood types, including Marilyn Monroe. They enjoyed eating here frequently. It's down at where South Palm Canyon turns into East Palm Canyon. But Mr. Lyons, great steakhouse. So another Maryland location, the Ocotillo Lodge. It's 1111 East Palm Canyon, but another old Hollywood haunt. Marilyn really liked hanging out by the pool at this particular place, but other people who've stayed here, you know, the Rat Pack kind of hung out here. Rolling Stones were here, Elizabeth Taylor, Betty Grable, Robert Stack, Errol Flynn, just a bunch of people. This was a big deal back in the day, but you can still stay here now. Now another place Marilyn would stay was the Ingleside Inn here at Ramon and Bellardo. Ingleside Inn is a very famous old Hollywood place. Now Melvin's Restaurant, which is also here, big hangout for Frank Sinatra. Melvin's was built later after Marilyn would stay here, but back in the day, Ingleside Inn was an invitation-only hotel. But just another place Marilyn would stay. Now, a lot has been made about Marilyn's rendezvous with John F. Kennedy, and by all accounts, including that of the Kennedy brother-in-law, Peter Lawford, also part of the Rat Pack, there was only one rendezvous that happened, and it happened out here in the desert area of Palm Springs. But it was at Bing Crosby's house in Palm Desert, not Bing Crosby's house in Thunderbird Country Club in Rancho Mirage. But it's possible that Marilyn did attend some parties here at Peter Lawford's house in Palm Springs. This is 1295 North Via Monte Vista. And Peter Lawford would throw all sorts of parties when he lived here. And it is possible that Marilyn attended a party here. And she may have met John F. Kennedy here, but according to Peter Lawford, there was no rendezvous here. This is on the corner of Via Las Palmas and North Monte Vista, Via Monte Vista. So here we are at Ironwood Country Club, and inside the gates of Ironwood Country Club is an address of 49400 Della Robbia Lane, and that was the address of Bing Crosby, and this was his house before the Thunderbird Country Club house that everyone kind of knows. So back when he owned his house here, it was part of the Silver Spur Ranch estates, and these were public streets. And Bing Crosby had a big house out here, and the house just to the north of him, his next door neighbor, was the house of Jimmy Van Heusen, the famous composer. And there was really nothing else around at the time. If you Google those or put that address in Google Maps, you'll see there's all sorts of development out there. But at some point in time, the Ironwood Country Club absorbed all those public streets that were part of Silver Spur Ranch. And it's now gated, and you can't get in there. No riffraff like me is allowed. So unless you're a member of the country club or a guest, you can't go down inside there. So, but this is the address where the rendezvous, if you want to call it that, between Marilyn Monroe and JFK happened, was at this Bing Crosby house here. And supposedly, according to a good number of sources, including Peter Lawford, who should know, there was only one rendezvous, and it was here at this Palm Desert house. Now, JFK and Marilyn Monroe stayed at the Bing Crosby house, and the Secret Service stayed at the Jimmy Van Heusen house. Now, as most of you Marilyn aficionados know, she was married for a short time to the baseball great Joe DiMaggio. And during their short marriage, they had an occasion to come here to Palm Springs, and they stayed here at the Sand Acre Estate, which is at 953 North Avenida Palmas, and just in time for the tree trimmers. And it's walled and shrubbed off all the way around. However, we have some photos that we can show, and you can see the tower, which is the main, I guess, master bedroom you would call it, which is where Marilyn stayed. But the Sand Acre Estate. Now, another little tidbit to keep in mind. As you probably know, that Joe DiMaggio and Marilyn Monroe were married in a civil ceremony up in Sacramento. And when the ceremony was done at City Hall, They got in a car and they drove south to the San Luis Obispo, Paso Robles area, and ate dinner and spent the night there. And then in the morning they got back in their car and they drove south. And they drove south to Idlewild, which is where Marilyn's lawyer had a house. And they stayed in that house up in Idlewild for, I think, just a little bit less than a week, 4 or 5 days. And the house that they stayed in Idlewild is no longer there. It was torn down years ago. However, if you do go up to Idlewild, you get to the community center, the Idlewild Community Center, and that's where the house was. So the community center, there's a playground there. That's where the house was that Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio stayed in for their honeymoon. So the mountain way above Palm Springs, if you can see the snow on top of that, that will be the general area of Idlewild. So right above Palm Springs is where Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio had their honeymoon. And then again, came here at a later date during their short marriage and stayed here at the Sandacre Estate. So this house over here, 1326 Rose Avenue, is the house that's associated with Marilyn Monroe. Now, there's a lot of people that think she owned this house. However, there's been a number of people who've researched this very well, and there's just no paperwork showing that she ever owned this house or anybody associated with her owned this house. The other issue is this house was built in 1961 and she died in 1962. So it's more than likely that she rented this for part of the last year of her life. But it is believed she did stay here and more than likely rented. The only house that anyone can ever prove that she owned is the one that she died in LA. Now the landscaping's changed a little bit since her time, but the house is the same and the backyard's the same. One interesting note is kitty corner to this house. Behind it is the honeymoon house for Elvis Presley. So Marilyn's house is just around the corner from Elvis Presley's honeymoon house. So 1326 Rose Avenue. Now Marilyn died on August 4th, 1962 at her home in the Brentwood area of LA. And she's laid to rest at Westwood Memorial Park in Los Angeles. So that's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen, for our little story today. This is the end. So this is not the backside of water that you would see at the Jungle Boat cruise at Disneyland. This is the backside of Marilyn. So I thank you for watching, and we will catch you next time on Discover This.